What's good, Internet? This is your boy Dylan, aka Show Me Your Dick Dylan, aka Give Me the Zuxoma, aka Daddy Cream Puff. You know me, you love me. Just wanted to talk today about some stuff regarding private servers, namely that private servers are better. But with Wrath Classic on the horizon, a lot of people are talking again about Classic Plus content coming out after the fact. But despite the fact that I'm a self-described Classic Andy, I'm not really interested in Blizzard doing Classic Plus content. I think I have a pretty unique perspective on this and experience, and I just wanted to throw my thoughts out there and add a new direction to the conversation. For context, I played a game before World of Warcraft called Ragnarok Online. It's a Korean MMO developed by a publicly traded company by the name of Gravity. Similar to Activision Blizzard, a lot of their development decisions are driven by analytics and sales and money, bottom line, essentially. So as a result, basically the moderation of the game is not as great as it could be. Bots are pretty rampant. So if you've played any of the official Ragnarok Online servers, you know that I botted all the time on official Ragnarok Online servers. So if you've played retail or classic WoW, you could probably see the parallel I'm going for. By the way, just a quick note, never bought it in World of Warcraft, never needed to, never had the need, never had the desire. But it's hard to say that it's not completely rampant in classic servers right now. Important note from earlier, I did refer to official Ragnarok Online servers, and the reason for that is because there were, at the time, back 15 years ago, there were a ton of private Ragnarok Online servers opened up by essentially, fans of the game. So, I played a bunch of those from Legend RO, Eternity RO, Justice RO, a lot of those along the way. I played a few others along the way, but those are the main three I played. And at the time, I was a budding teen. I could not afford a subscription game like World of Warcraft or official Ragnarok Online, so that was what I had to go with. But what's crazy when you look back at this is how well those private servers performed in comparison to the official servers. And this, just to be clear, this wasn't even the case with WoW back in the day. I remember my first WoW experience was during TBC on a private vanilla World of Warcraft server, and they had all sorts of shit broken. Quests bugging out constantly. Zeppelins and boats didn't work. Just shit was all over the place with class balance. Nobody knew a fucking thing about it. I mean, it was pretty bad all together. It was really bad. But that wasn't the case with Ragnarok Online. In a lot of cases, private servers were a much better experience. In a lot of cases, private servers were better experiences than the actual game that was making you pay for it. And I'll kind of explain why here. Ragnarok Online private servers essentially had the free-to-play model before free-to-play model was even a thing that a lot of game developers did. And they had to do that because, it wasn't legal for them to accept money for playing the game. As a caveat, they would do hey, donation, you get a fucking shitty helmet or something. I remember they sold Valk helmets on Legend RO for $100. You had to pay $100 for this stupid ass glass helmet, and people paid a fuck ton for that. They would pay $100 for that, no problem. They wouldn't have any problem dropping that, which in my mind, it's crazy now thinking about that. $100 seemed like so much at the time, but I wouldn't even spend $100 on WoW for something now. But not only did they offer a free-to-play experience, but they also had GMs that would clean up bots, and they would be, constantly, 24/7 looking for bots, depending on the server. Sometimes they didn't give a shit as much, but the ones that I played on, they were really good about dealing with bots. They would have boosted EXP rates because nobody has time to grind in a Korean MMO. Even back in 2005, I played on a 13-time server because I just didn't have the patience to play on a 1-times experience rate server. But also increased item drop rates as well. Lower ping because the servers are actually on the same fucking continent. That helped a lot too. In general, it gave a lot of players, such as myself, a better experience than they probably would have gotten playing the official servers. So, I look back on those days with a lot of joy, a lot of nostalgia, despite the fact that I would probably never like the game anymore, but it was still a great experience at the time. But nowadays, it kind of seems like it's the same case for World of Warcraft private servers. I think they pretty much torpedo the official classic servers, if I'm being honest. I'm mainly going to be drawing some similarities between Season of Mastery and some other private servers, but for the sake of preservation, I am not going to name those private servers. If you care enough to look them up, you can look them up yourself. It's probably not super hard to find them if you look for them. But I just don't want, to push the wrong people in that direction. And I'm not going to be mentioning the name of the private servers. I just don't want them to get shut down, basically. But it's not hard to find. You'll be able to find it pretty easily. With that being said, let's talk about why I'm not interested in the Classic Plus from Blizzard. Reason one is that Blizzard either doesn't have the creative talent to make meaningful classic content, or they aren't able to create content that isn't prioritizing boosting analytics or sales numbers. So I think from previous behavior, it's easy to see Blizzard doesn't really mind doing changes, such as adding store mounts to Classic, despite the fact that those mounts never existed, because it's an easily trackable income, and it's something that they can see an actual benefit from in very clear terms. So they put this store mount up on the store. It sells this many times. They made this much money from this edition. Cut and dry, easy, basic, and everybody's happy, right? Except for the people who don't want those mounts. I personally don't really care, but I guess a lot of people do, so whatever. But just to say, if they were going to add new raids, new dungeons, new world content, housing systems, shit like that, how do you even begin to track how that is? Because obviously it's going to make, it'll make subscriptions go up because people want to play the content, but there's no way of tracking, hey, this is the reason why they came back versus, oh, they just wanted to play Classic, so they resubscribed and did that. And there could be all sorts of reasons. I mean, it's nuanced, right? So you can't track those things quite as easily as a store mount. So that's obviously a big reason why they wouldn't do that. The only other explanation I could even imagine for how Blizzard tackles these changes is infinite monkey theorem, but I don't like to assume incompetence whenever there's a clear financial motive, and that's pretty much what it is. It's just a financial thing. It's really all it is. And then that brings us to reason two, which I think is actually a lesser. I think it's really reason one is the main thing, but reason two is that the current devs don't have the same passion for the game that a lot of outside people or classic players have. So when you compare Season of Mastery to private servers, which I won't be name dropping obviously, it's pretty obvious which teams are more passionate about the game than the other. That's not to say that Season of Mastery was necessarily bad. There were a lot of great changes. I think that adding nodes, summoning stones, the Soul of Iron system, and the world buff nerf are all pretty great. But in my opinion, these are all just basic quality of life changes, and these are just basically safe changes that aren't really groundbreaking. It doesn't have the hook that's going to bring people non-classic Andes in, retail Andes. It's not gonna give them a new experience they didn't get to experience back in 2018 whenever Classic came out. But just to give you an example here, there's a private server that I've been playing on that has the following here. So you got a system that's similar to Soul of Iron. You basically pick up a quest at level 1 and then you become mortal. Once you hit 60, you become immortal. So after you hit 60, that's it. Your hardcore run is done. And then you get a title, that special title that says Immortal. So then you have basically a level 60 character that has a cool title that other 60s won't have. So Season of Mastery has the same thing with Soul of Iron. It's actually really cool, and I think the added bonus of having those bosses, the raid clears on Undying is pretty cool. But on the other hand, with the private server system, it has the unfortunate side effect of basically deleting your character if you die. So, it would definitely really suck to just die and lose your character in a raid because some other dipshit doesn't know how to do raid mechanics, right? So that would suck, and that obviously wouldn't work. But it's also important to note that this private server had the hardcore system before Soul of Iron. So cool idea. Take it or leave it. I personally prefer the private servers. But Soul of Iron is cool too. They implemented full cross-faction, so all dungeons and raids can be done by both factions together. You can have a party of mixed alliance and horde players, and this is all classic content too. Now, obviously, there's still world PvP, and you can't just, you can't in a horde character walk into an alliance town and vice versa. But pretty much any group content a la 9.2.5, similar to, well, actually it's more comprehensive than 9.2.5, but yeah, you could do all the group content in a cross-faction party. They added new race and class combos, so like orc and dwarf mages, gnome and undead hunters, so that's pretty cool. There's a ton of new content as well. They have playable high elves and playable goblins in Classic. They have custom zones for them as well as custom zones for the gnomes and trolls. They have new dungeons and raids. They have new towns all over the place. There's a bunch of cool secrets, a bunch of custom quests to make quest hubs feel a little bit more meaty. So even areas like just like Durotar, the Barrens, classic levels from like, you know, just areas that already have a lot of quests and feel complete, have even more and help them feel even more complete. So I mean, it's really more of a, you know, you don't have that as much of a problem in Classic where you would have to grind a lot. You can really just keep questing. You know, you don't ever have the problem where you run out of quests. So it's pretty cool. On top of all that, they have a tent system where you can gain rested EXP really fast. It basically adds some level of EXP boost, although they do you know, still have 1x rates for the people who are looking for that, you know, proper Classic experience. Now, take all that and then add a group of active GMs that nuke bots, patch exploits, ban serial harassers, moderate chats, etc. Something that Blizzard just doesn't have the resources to do because they keep firing all their fucking employees for profits. You know, I don't know what else to say about that. Just, you know, that's just really an issue of upper management there. And upper management, you know, executive level people. You know, Bobby Kotick. Fuck that guy. Simply put, the private server is basically just better Season of Mastery. And, you know, I just don't think the Blizzard of today really has it in them to make a comparable experience. Not necessarily, but I don't fault the devs for that either, really. Like, I mean, obviously, I could tell they're not as, you know, they're not as passionate, and it's probably because they're having to deal with all the shit that's being shoveled them from executives. So, can't really blame them too much. I mean, a little bit, right, obviously, but not completely. But this is an issue, obviously, it starts with the executive level, who focus on basically making money rather than making good games. So it's an important note that I do understand that private servers are a legal gray area, and really I think that that's kind of generous calling it a legal gray area. It's really more in the illegal area. A lot of Ragnarok Online servers have been shut down due to cease and desists, like Talon RO, for example. But what if the game now, like Gravity has, is different from the game from 15 years ago? What if they don't provide an as-is experience like it was 15 years ago? You know, they're holding the copyrights to it, so, you know, legally nobody can do it except for Gravity, but what if they don't do it? Then they can't, you know, you just can't play that fucking game anymore. You know, I think it's definitely, you know, something that people who are smarter than me are going to have to figure out in the future. You know, as we kind of come to the conclusion that video games are art as a society, maybe, you know, the legal precedents can change. Maybe put like a 5 to 10 year protection on the content, and then, you know, after that period has expired, then people can run their own instances of it if they want to for preservation's sake. Obviously, not money-making sake, but preservation's sake. So that'll just leave me with some final thoughts here. Obviously, the existence of private servers isn't legal, but, you know, the question I'm posing is, should they really be illegal? I think most people could agree that private servers don't affect companies' bottom lines, at least not enough to warrant using legal resources to shut them down. In fact, I'm sure in some cases, the legal resources are going to cost them more than the private servers were even costing them to begin with. Now, I want to make sure to clarify, I understand why they're doing it, right? Because obviously they have to do that to set a precedence for how they defend their IPs. Like, for example, when Nintendo tried to shut down Evo for streaming Melee back in 2014? I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I mean, that's just one of those examples where the legal team was a little bit too litigious, right? But anyway, as it becomes more widely accepted that video games are art, I would really like to see a push for some level of preservation for online games as they were. So games like Vanilla WoW, Ragnarok Online, pre-2008 era, and so on. But what are your thoughts? I want to hear, leave me a comment below. Tell me what you thought. If you hated the video, go fuck yourself. Have a good rest of the day.